Three, so then 3 union reps, and then 3 student reps would be invited. Say that again?
There's 2 unions.
2 unions,
2 unions, okay.
but
Okay,
secretaries
so
have
3
agreed to let the teachers speak for them in the past, so you wouldn't necessarily have to count them.
Say that again?
The teacher union speaks for the secretary union.
Oh, got you, okay. Yep, that's right. Okay, so 3 parents, 10 admin team members, 2 union reps, 3 student reps, 2 community leaders, possibly 3. We would invite the 3 community leaders. So the 2 mayors and the chamber president would be invited. And so that's who would be invited. We would do a random draw for the parents. For the union reps, do you want us to, typically what we would do is we would say, you're welcome to send a representative, and then they pick who their representative is, so that it's not, and most of the time then it's like the union president or, you know, whoever they designate.
I think we could
So that
probably do
it's
the
not like
same
you
with this.
guys picking which union members are going to serve, and then it's just whether or not those other people can attend. Is that all correct?
I would actually say that we could actually do that with the student representatives. They could pick which one to be there. That would
So
help.
one student rep,
I think so. I mean, we want to try to limit it down. At least I'm okay with all 3 of them.
okay. And so that, well, and they can pick one, and then if they all want to do it together, they can sit together and just submit one form.
Right.
So, and talk it through if they want to do that. Okay. Okay, does that sound correct then? So we've got 3, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, up to 18 people. Up to 19, because I forgot the chamber president, so that's 2, maybe 3. Okay, and so
Munson.
definitely you want to do it. What?
Tom Munson. He's our chamber president. I
Is the
believe he's
name,
still
okay.
president. We'll confirm that though.
Yes, I just didn't know.
Okay, so yeah, with that many people, you definitely want to do an EMD form. It'll be a lot faster for you to digest that information before you go into deliberations. And I'll work on, I'll connect with Carlin about, you know, how to get the information out, and how to do the, you know, drawing of the parents, all of that information. And then, we'll have them do an EMD form for round 2, just like you guys do. So, okay, and is everybody comfortable with that then? And then potentially a meet and greet separate event that would happen probably in between the tours and the, their board interviews with you.
That sounds good.
Okay. All right, so moving right along, let's get into the interview training. And for the new board members, I am going to be kind of rushing through some of this stuff really fast. If you have a question, please don't hesitate to holler out and stop me or pause me, or feel free to take notes, and you can connect with me later one-on-one if you're feeling like everybody else seems to be getting what I'm saying and you don't want to stop it. So I'm gonna try to breeze through it pretty fast. I know the printed materials are shorter than what I have on here, so I'll be doing some scrolling to get through some of this stuff as well. And so if you're confused as to where we are, let me know and I'll slow down so that you can figure out where we're at. And I know some of this is reviewed for a few of you as well, so that's why I'm gonna try to go through it fast. I don't want to spend too much time. But just to, let's see here, well, we start out with this. I want to remind you of your leadership profile that was based on the hiring criteria survey that you all took before the planning meeting. So that's this section right here. And then that is what we have the round 1 questions kind of based around, is that. And then also if there's, you know, additional questions based on the input survey from last year. Okay, we can skip the timeline. So relevant law when it comes to interviews, obviously there's a don't ask list. So following EEOC protocols, there's lots of things that are protected categories, and so you can't ask. We won't get into a lot of this into much detail at all because of course we'll be asking questions that relate to the role of superintendent. So I'm not gonna spend a lot of time on this. Please know that it's in your materials, so if you have questions about what is allowed to ask and what isn't, you can definitely reference this material. But of course, everything, we want to get, I always mention this at, I think, all of our meetings, is that it's all open meeting law, so all parts of the superintendent search are done in open meeting. And then, of course, that application information is all private data until they're selected to be interviewed. And then they're considered a finalist, and at that time, then their names will go public. And so that's kind of all of the stuff that pertains to law and statute. So for example, if there was, these are like, here's the protected category, what's not permissible to ask, what would be permissible to ask. But of course it needs to be relevant to their role. And so a lot of these are not. And so we're not even gonna get into it. And, we're gonna go through and work through questions together, which is why I'm not gonna spend a lot of time on this. But the thing that I like to mention, especially about all of these in the protected categories, is of course that your notes, any notes that you take are subject to a data request. And any candidate can believe that anything that's in your notes or that was happened, throughout the process, they can believe that that was used in your decision as to whether or not they're hired. And so you want to be very careful about the notes that you're taking and that you're not all of those topics and the protected categories, that we're not just not asking questions about them, but you're not also making notes about any of those things in your in any of your notes. So including like the notes when you're reviewing the application materials, the notes during the interviews, and my little example I always tend to give or like to give is sometimes when you're interviewing 6 candidates, it's hard to remember who the first person was and who the second person was, and you're just making yourself little notes to remember, and so for example, you don't want to write, the older lady with the cross necklace, because now you have violated age, you have violated gender, and you have violated religion. So you think it's not a big deal, but it's those little things that you just need to be mindful of and aware of, and making sure that none of that is in your notes anywhere. So this is just this is pieces that I had them pull out of the printed materials. Of course, equal employment opportunity, all of the information is in here for you to reference. And you do have that policy as well. The public and the private personnel data, that's again saying that all of the application materials are private. Only those who you select to be interviewed with, those names are the only ones that will go public. Everybody else will remain private forever. And again, make sure that when you are reviewing the application materials, you are not doing it in a public location where somebody could walk behind the screen and see the names or where they worked or anything like that, any information. So this is just showing finalist means an individual who's selected to be interviewed by the school board for a position. And the other piece of that is that the names are private data except when applicants are considered by the school board to be finalists. And then that other one shows the definition of finalist. And the other one that we always touch on is of course the open meeting law. And I'm sorry if this makes you guys dizzy. I'm going through it really fast. But I already touched on open meeting law plenty, so I'm not going to go into it. But just a reminder, you cannot close a meeting to discuss contract or anything else regarding to the superintendent search. Okay, a couple of other search considerations based upon statute. So for purposes of just subdivisions 3 and 19, a superintendent is considered a teacher. And so one of the things which I don't remember or recall if we talked about this last year, because it came up in one of our searches last year. So special voting circumstances is if anybody is related to any of the board members. So I don't remember if we talked about that last year or not. So if any of the applicants are related to any of you, please notify me, because there has to be a special voting circumstances then. So just making sure that, like, I would never know if you're related to a candidate, so make sure that you notify me if you are. And then the other piece that is subject to this is, of course, the where they reside. So a teacher shall not be required to reside within the employing district as a condition to employment or continued teaching employment. that's basically saying the same thing about a superintendent. You cannot require them to live or reside within your district. And it can't be considered in your deliberations or your discussions at all. And then the only other pieces on here is, of course, you can do a contract up to 3 years, and to make a subsequent contract, it can't be done until 365 days before the expiration of that first contract. Okay, so here is that initial hire of a teacher related to a board member. It has to be unanimous vote of the full board. So that would be the special voting circumstance if any of you are related to any of the candidates. Okay, so common interview mistakes. I'll go through these really quickly. We don't have to worry about number 1, that's already done. You worked with us on that. Violations of the don't ask list, vague questions, failure to probe motivation. All of that is taken care of with the questions that we'll be coming together and deciding on to ask. So we don't have to worry about all of those. As far as making a bad impression, one of the things that I like to mention is that it is a competitive market for superintendents right now. I know your guys aren't going to make a bad impression. That's not what I'm concerned about. Just, we talk about it a little bit more, but we want to make sure that the candidates are hearing from all of the school board members. And so I'll touch on that when we get a little bit further. Don't forget the whole picture as well. So sometimes you get done with an interview and you are only remembering what happened in the interview. Keep in mind that you as board members have access to a lot more information than the public or the admin team or the student representatives or whoever might be providing you with feedback. You guys are seeing all of the application materials. You're seeing the entire pool. You'll be, and so you'll see the answers that they're writing to the questions. You're seeing all of their resume and their transcripts. You can see all of that information and their licensure. And so you guys have access to that. But then not only that, you have data that you received from the public input survey last year. And then you'll have that, I'll make you a new 1-pager comparison sheet that has what you now have selected as a board member, and how it looks, whether it's aligned or not with what the community survey said last year. And so I'll have that comparison for you as well for when you're selecting candidates and when you're interviewing them as well, to kind of reference throughout that. And so you guys are privy to a lot more information than everybody else is. So keeping that in mind. Don't forget the whole picture when you're interviewing. Oops. Also, don't treat the interview like a one-way street. Of course, they're going to be asking you guys questions at the end, so we want to make sure that we're hopefully allowing time for that. But again, I always kind of put that back on the candidate that they need to manage their time. The incomplete notes, that's a really important piece. When you're interviewing, let's say you interview 6 candidates, and on the second day, you may forget which candidate responded a certain way on the first day. And so make sure that you are taking really good notes on those, on their interview responses. But again, don't forget that your notes are subject to a data request. We will be turning those all in at the end of the search. So making sure that you are taking good notes on the responses so that you're able to remember who said what. Don't make any too quick decisions. It's sometimes it's kind of at a disadvantage for the candidates that interview the second night, because the first night you will have all evening, and you guys have a night in between, so you'll have 2 days to be considering the first round of candidates. Don't let that necessarily skew you over the second day of candidates. You want to make sure that you give the proper time after round 2 or after your first round, the second night, to really process and think through what those responses were from the candidates that day. Don't accept the wrong fit. We talked about this last year as well. If you don't have the right person, we'll work through what that looks like and what our options are. You don't have to settle if you don't find the right superintendent in this during this process. And then don't check your bias at the door. And the things that I talk about with bias, really, it's basically making assumptions about candidates. The things that we see most often in superintendent search is a lot of Typically, it's age stuff, and gender. And then the other one that has been coming up more frequently is familiarity bias, where it might be somebody that you're already familiar with. And so you kind of bring in some bias either for or against that person because you may already know some stuff about them. So just being very aware and mindful of what your thoughts are, and what assumptions you might be making, because you don't want to be making assumptions on your candidates. Okay, I'm not going to spend a lot of time in the deliberation scenarios. We did this last year, and I don't want to waste all of your time, but for you new board members, read through these 3 deliberation scenarios when you get a chance. The things that I want to remind you is don't ever dig your heels in. Keep an open mind. When your fellow board members are talking about candidates and finalists, really listen to what they're saying, active listening, not thinking about what your argument or your, what you may say opposing that. So instead, really hear what they're saying. Don't dig in your heels. Definitely, if things get heated in a discussion, please take a recess, try to come back, reconvene, and bring it back to the kids, because really that's what all of this is all about. Remember to bring it back to the kids. The one that I do want to touch on is number 3, just specifically because we do have newer board members here. So, for example, this is the number 3 scenario. During deliberations on the final candidates, one board member states they have information from credible sources that one candidate has issues in their background that the rest of the board does not know about, and that is why they won't support their candidacy. How could your board manage the deliberations? All I'm going to say is this absolutely will not happen, because if any of you board members have any information about that would make you not support their candidacy, you're going to reach out to me. That's my job. So before it gets to the point where you would say something like that at the board table that could potentially put your district in a lot of risk, you're going to bring anything concerning to my attention so that I can do digging into it if it's something that I don't already know about. A lot of times I've already know about situations, and I can give you the feedback of what we've learned about those situations. And if you still feel it's something that needs to be shared with the board, I'll walk you through how to do that. Because again, there's no closed meetings when it comes to superintendent search. So this will not happen, because none of you will do that. You will come to me with any concerns you have about any of the candidates. Okay. We're gonna skip through all these sample interview questions because we have much better ones. The one that, the next thing I like to talk about is the candidate's turn. So this is just to kind of get your, wheels turning a little bit about starting to think through some of the things about the district. So the candidates will ask you questions toward the end of their interviews. And typically when they ask a question, I would say Mark would then say thank you, and then just look around and say who would like to respond, and kind of manage who's going to be responding. Sometimes they'll ask questions that they're asking of each and every one of you, and so then everybody should try to provide a response. Sometimes they just ask a general question, and then you can see who wants to answer it. As a board member, it's important that the candidate hears from each of you. We prefer that you not all try to answer every single question, because that can get redundant and it can get long. But as a board member, you should try to contribute at least to one of the questions. So it's good to kind of think through some of these sample candidate questions. They may ask nothing like this, but if you're thinking through them, you're already kind of prepared. It's really important for you to be able to talk about what great things there are happening in Cass-Manorville, and also being honest about what challenges you guys might be facing. Okay, and then for reference check questions, this we don't really need to touch on much, but do we know who's planning to do those extra reference checks after the round 1? I know Mark did it last year. Kate, did you do additional reference checks last year?
Mm-hmm, I did.
Yeah, I think it was you too, right?
Yeah, it was Mark and Kate, yeah.
Yeah, are you two planning to do that again this year, or do you want somebody else to do it?
always open to volunteers.
I would help with that. Yeah, I feel like I don't mind someone else doing it. It's not a lot of work.
When you say it's a lot of work,
No, I didn't think it was terrible. Yeah, I think everyone was very willing to share their opinions, so I just took good notes and replied back to the board.
okay, and I thought I heard somebody say that they would be willing to do it. Who was
It
that?
me, Elizabeth.
Elizabeth? Okay, and did anybody else volunteer to do it?
Aaron, Patrick.
I can help.
Aaron did?
Oh. Aaron will help.
Aaron, thank you. Sorry, you,
They're
Aaron.
gonna bring in the board members here. They're gonna step up.
Okay, so Elizabeth and Aaron are gonna do the additional reference checks. And so just to clarify, those are not calling references on their application materials. That would be calling additional references since they're public now. I'll walk you guys through that separately so that we don't have to take any time on it. Okay, the things to keep in mind about deliberating in public, of course, it's a public meeting, so focus on strengths. You don't want to be saying anything in the meeting that could be based on rumor or anything. Really, there's no need to point out flaws. When you see the deliberations process, you'll understand how it works. And I know half of you have been through the process. And a lot of times you see that you don't need to go into weaknesses of candidates without being able to come to a decision. If the discussion plateaus, then yes, sometimes you do need to do that. But I'll walk you through that process as we get to it as well. Just remember to try to focus on the positive attributes of the candidates and judge each candidate based on their leadership profile and the hiring criteria. Again, don't go on fact-finding missions. If you have something that you hear about that's concerning, please reach out to me. You definitely want to only listen to the facts. Like I said, you'll be lobbied for and against for candidates, so just be mindful of that. The only other thing that's in the interview training materials is the model contract. And then we just need to decide on interview questions. So I am going to stop sharing, because do you guys all have printed versions of the interview questions?
No, they have the electronic version you sent them.
Okay, but you guys all have that so you can reference it?
Yes.
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 Okay. I'm going to stop sharing then, and then we'll get to the interview questions. Now, I know there was another part of your meeting tonight. Is this okay to do this, or do we need to break and like come back to, do I need to break from doing this and come back when you guys are done with the other part?
Nope, you're good to go.
Okay. All right, so let's talk interview questions. Okay, so typically, if you guys hopefully have had a chance to read through these a little bit and pick out some of your favorites. So you can see the questions that were underlined are the ones that were asked last year. And you guys can make it really easy and say, in each category, we want the ones that were asked last year. We don't have to do that. Typically what I do is I have you read through and circle 2 questions in each section. And then I would say, okay, who wants question 2? And you all raise your hand, somebody gives me the count. Who wants question 3? Quick count, whatever. And then we figure out which ones are the top choices. Is everybody comfortable doing it that way? Or do you guys have another suggestion of how you want to do it?
I just do know that I think Patrick can weigh in this also, that we did spend a ton of time previously that going through these questions, really thinking about how we even want to phrase a question. Not so much a question, but we did take a pretty deep dive. You remember, Kate?
Mm-hmm.
So, just laying that out there.
So if you guys want, we can do the same questions that you asked last year for the ones that were similar, like topics that were similar for the leadership profile. The one that's new is I think the 1, 2, 3, under the educational priorities, has experience in implementing educational priorities and executing strategic plans successfully. That one, you guys didn't ask any questions in that topic, so we could pick out questions in that area.
I think, well, let's still go through, just in case there's any new input, since we have some new board members, and just consider the questions, but knowing that the underlined ones were just
ask
worked
you for.
really hard on, yeah.
Yep, I'm fine with that. So has everybody had a chance to read through them? Should I give you a little time to circle your top 2 choices in each section quick?
We have time, but as you say, I read through and circle 9 or chose 2. And I think for the most part, I think circle at least 1, underline 1 from last year too. I didn't realize the underline 1s were questions from last year, so.
Does anybody need time or do you want me to go through them right away?
Let's just go through in the short segment, is that okay?
Yep.
Each one, yeah.
Okay, so for the very first section, the visibility and accessibility, how many of you like question 2?
Great, this was easy.
No hands,
Okay, question 3,
no hands.
thank you, Garland.
You're welcome.
Question 4,
Question 4 was my second choice, wasn't my first choice.
I like question 4 too.
2 hands,
2. Okay, question 5,
That was my first choice.
yep, all hands,
and question 6.
3 hands.
Okay, so why don't you guys read question 4 and 6 again and tell me which one of those 2 you want to have?
Could we add community organizations to question 4?
Yeah. Would that satisfy everybody?
Yeah.
That'd be fine.
Yep,
Okay, perfect. Okay, in the honesty and ethics category, who likes number 7?
no hands,
Number 8?
8 was my second choice.
And I like number 8 too.
2 hands,
Okay, number 9?
no hands,
Number 10?
4 hands,
And number 11?
all hands.
Okay, so number 11 for sure, and then are you guys comfortable with just doing 10 and 11? Or do the people who selected number 8 want to make a case for number 8? Or is there a way you want to combine them?
So let's just reread them real quick.
Just remember,
They're
it sticks
similar.
out number 10, I remember the answers we got to that were pretty interesting. I thought it really
Tough question.
yeah, I think I agree with the community center.
Yeah, I think the one reason I chose 8, again, that's my second choice, it wasn't my first choice, but just, I think sometimes it's easier to talk about what ethical means to you, integrity, but I like the fact that once give an example of how you've actually used this or actually promoted it, you know?
Could we put in something with 10 where it says, please be specific? Can we say like, please give an example? I like the idea of an example as well.
Oh, yeah. That's a good idea.
Yep, okay, so we'll do number 10 and we'll add to give an example. Okay, for the leadership development category, who likes number 12?
No hands,
13,
no hands,
14,
no hands,
15,
all hands,
16.
all hands.
Easy, okay, next one, educational priorities. This one's gonna be a little tougher because you don't have any in this one. Okay, so in the educational priorities section.
Can we have 1
who likes
minute?
number 17?
Can we have 1 minute to read this one?
Yes, yep, go ahead. Just let me know when you guys are ready.
Okay, I'm ready.
I'm ready.
Ready?
Okay, all right, anybody like number 17?
3 hands,
Number 18?
1 hand,
Number 19?
4 hands,
Number 20?
1 hand,
And number 21?
3 hands.
Okay, so number 4 is, or number 19 is a go with 4. Can you guys read through number 17 and number 21, because there were 3 hands on each? And let me know of those 2, if you want to sway people one way or the other, or if there's a way to combine them that you like better.
I can move to 21 from 18.
Say that again?
I can move from 18 to 21. Not sure what that was.
21's up to 4 hands.
I like 21.
So 4.
Okay, so 19 and 21.
Yes.
Okay, all right, so for the next section, community involvement. We have number 22, anybody like that one?
No hands,
23,
1 hand,
24,
1 hand,
25,
no hands,
26.
all hands,
Okay, we'll just do that one then. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. We're at 10 questions, 11 with the closing question. Okay, so now in the sections below, the rest of the sections, those are all just additional questions. So some of them were topics that did not come up for this school board's hiring criteria, but they came up last year, and so questions were asked in those topics. So you can read through those underlined or other areas of those. And then there were, that's the first page of those. And then the next page, there's section questions, themes that came up from your community input survey, from your stakeholders, then questions that were asked under those topics. So what we could do and have enough time in round 1 is if you pick 1 question in each of the following sections, or if there's a section that you really like too, maybe we don't do one in the other one, or we do, you know, we would have enough to do 1 to 2 in a lot of them, but not all of them. Have you guys had a chance to look at them? Can I start asking about these?
nodding,
Yes.
Go ahead.
Okay, so under school finance, anybody like question 1?
no hands,
Question 2,
no hands,
3,
1 hand,
4,
5 hands,
and question 5.
2 hands,
Okay, so I'm gonna circle 4 in there. And then under visionary creative thinker, and I should also say we don't have to have a question under all of these topics. I'm just throwing it out there for that as well. We can, we should if you want. Okay, question 6.
no hands,
Question 7,
no hands,
8,
no hands,
10, or 9, sorry,
I'm gonna actually,
3 hands,
for number 9.
correct,
Okay, number 10,
1 hand,
number 11.
5 hands,
Okay, so I'm circling number 11 for sure. Do you guys also want to ask number 9? I had 3 hands on it, or do you want me to wait to see where we end up?
I'm okay with just the 11.
Just 11?
I'm okay with that.
You see, we-
I didn't hear that.
I said we can see where, if we need it.
Where we end up? Okay. Okay. All right, so the next section section, effectively mediates and accommodates different perspectives, values teamwork. Does anybody like question 12?
One hand,
13,
no hands,
14,
no hands,
15,
one hand,
16,
3 hands,
and 17.
5 hands.
5.
Correct.
Okay, I'm circling 17 and I'll put a mark by number 16. Unless somebody really wants to fight for that one to make sure it gets added. Okay, we'll wait. Okay, develops trust and works collaboratively with diverse groups of stakeholders. Anybody like question 18,
No hands,
19,
no hands,
20,
1 hand,
21.
5 hands.
Okay, we'll do number 21. Okay, the last section, delegates authority while maintaining accountability. Number 22,
No hands,
23,
no hands,
24,
1 hand,
25,
no hands. Oh, 1 hand,
26. Whoops, 1.
1 on 25,
Okay, and how many for 26?
5 hands.
Okay, we'll do number 26. Okay, so we are at 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. We're at 16 selected questions. And that is enough to just be done with that. Or if you guys wanted to add those other 2, we could add those other 2. And so that was under a visionary creative thinker, number 9. And effectively mediates and accommodates different perspectives, number 16. So it's just whether or not you guys want to add question 9 and 16, or one or the other, or leave it without.
I think we could add them both. I think they both offer valuable information.
Is everybody comfortable with that?
I would be more comfortable with 16.
Adding 16,
Just
or are you saying
just
staying with 16 questions?
No,
Just
I'm sorry,
16.
adding just number 16.
Oh,
Adding number 16, but not necessarily number 9?
No, yeah, number 9, wouldn't be a choice for me, if mine.
I like number 9 just because of everything happening right now in public education. It would be interesting to hear their opinions. Kind of open to it. I mean, it's not a specific question where they need to give examples.
I agree, I like number 9. I think it's good to hear the candidates' just vision. I think that's important for us to know what their vision is.
I'd be okay with 9. That's my first choice, and then 11 was my second choice for that category, so.
Okay, so I'm hearing most everybody wants to include 9 and 16, is that correct?
I'm fine with it.
okay.
Okay, so I have 18 selected questions. I have Elizabeth and Aaron are doing additional reference checking between round 1 and round 2. And I have my list of audience input group members, and then also that you guys potentially want to do meet and greets after the tours, maybe before, depending on what that looks like with your building staff as well. Because typically the principals do the tours, and so we'll kind of walk through what that looks like a little bit more, and I will report back to you at your selection meeting. I don't have anything else for you guys. Do you have any questions for me?
I don't.
No, I don't think so.
All right, well, that's all I have. If you guys do have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to me, especially for you new board members who I breezed through interview training really fast. So if you do have any questions on any of that, please don't hesitate to reach out. But again, I'll be there for the interviews and I walk you guys through the process. So yeah, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out, but please, again, that's all I have, so. Thank you so much for your time, I really appreciate it, and good luck with the rest of your meetings.
Thank
Thank
you.
Thank you, Amy.
All right, take
Yeah.
care.
We're on to 4.2, school board vacancy. Nominees answer questions from the board members. We have Mr. Richards here. Okay.
It looks like Pat's right outside the door.
Oh. Somebody want to invite him, please? Thank you. Do this so it doesn't feel like a police review.
Yeah, how do you want to do it?
Is there already?
What did it?
I think what we do is just like popcorn question if you say.
Can I say something before we start? So one thing that Craig Abbott from MSBA pointed out today is that as we move through this process, we maintain professionalism at the board table, mutual respect, and highlight reasons you support an individual or why an individual would be a good fit, but do not cut down and decide one or the other individuals in an effort to promote the other. And the other thing he spoke to is that when we're doing this, we should alternate questions. We should alternate who goes first, so it's not one person going first the entire time. And then also, if the question is different, you have whatever question you ask one nominee, you need to allow for the other nominee to also respond to it. Okay.
Okay, I was just gonna make a quick statement too. I know not a lot of people are in here, but I just want to make sure, I think it's recorded for the public to know that, whoever we vote on, decide on, the public has a 30-day period to gather 5% of the total votes in the election as a petition. If that's not who they want, then we would start the process over again. I just want to make sure they're aware of that.
That option, and I think it just goes to the district office.
I'm sorry, Ian.
That gets run through the district office, or that gets submitted to the petition office. If there's a petition, make.
If you'd like to ask a question, go ahead.
No, I didn't. We were moving or just pivoting?
Oh, thank you. I guess I can go first. We start off with Mr. Walsh. As a board chair, it's my task of assigning members to various committees. Out of the 5 primary committees, which 2 do you feel you would provide the most value, input, and why? The committees include personnel, land and facilities, policy, student activities, and finance.
I would think my expertise would come in probably best with student activities and finance. Finance, when I was with Charter Business, dealing with accounts up to $2 and $3 million, researching issues, finding the problem, finding the solution, issuing credit, make sure a problem can't happen again. I think there's some over expenditure in this district right now, some things that need to be deeper looked into and breadcrumbs need to be followed and things like that. And then activities and student activities, I'm usually around the camera taking photos. We've done homecoming photos the past 10 years, 11 years. I was just photographing the middle school robotics state Thursday and Friday. My oldest is my mathlete, my youngest is my athlete, so he's in plays and athletic triathlon, robotics, taekwondo. My younger is my gymnast right now. She's only 2nd grade. She's coming to more activities, so that's definitely those 2 areas where I'm my heart be more into. I like numbers and I like activities.
Ms. Richards, same question?
Sure. So I'm aware that Ms. Olson or Board Member Olson vacated existing committees, and if it's the will of the board just to slide someone into those committees for ease, that's certainly something that works. I've served on the board for a decade, and so I've either served on every committee or chaired every committee over those 10 years, from policy to finance, negotiations, student activities, community education. I served on the Denver Education District Board for a time as well. And so I think my expertise in those areas is probably already existing. But it is, what works best for the board. I know that this is a dynamic year, and so if it works best to put someone into policy, because, for example, I know that was a strength of Amy's in the past, that's a board I served on, and I'm willing to jump in and do that. So which boards are my strength? I've always had a passion for community education. I've served in that role for a long period of time. But that doesn't mean that I don't have strengths in other areas. My day job as the vice president of sales, I oversee multi-million-dollar budgets. And so finance is a strong area. I know we have negotiations coming up in T-minus a month or two. Those things will start. And so those are all areas I think that I can contribute to the board immediately from day one.
Okay, so this is going to be for both of us. So, we have to deal with different personalities on the board. We have to deal with different situations that arise. How can you effectively work with somebody in a situation where you don't agree with their opinion? And how do you look over the situation? How do you digest it? And then how do you work with that person?
Let me start this now. So I think when you are on a board, there's always going to be varying perspectives, which is good, right? Not having groupthink is a good thing for a board. That's why there's 7 different voices on that board, so that when you do come into a situation, there is an uneven number. I think the thing that sometimes gets lost, and maybe it even got lost in some of the things that happened in the past year, is that ultimately we're doing what's best for kids, right? And so to make sure that that's the guiding star as to what we're looking for. Getting into the specifics, Eric, of your question, is it that, for example, if you and I have different opinions, asking you more. I know in the past the board has used strengths finder to understand that, someone needs more input, needs more data, needs more analytics, more time to make those decisions. It's helpful to understand that, okay, this is the reason that Eric's coming to this perspective. It's maybe that we don't disagree. It's just that maybe I came to that conclusion faster and you like more data to support your decision, or whatever the factor may be, right? And so sometimes it's just having those conversations of understanding where someone else is coming from. Sometimes it is going to be that you are going to disagree, and that's okay, right? Again, that not everyone has the same perspective, but that we can still, in the end, align to what we're doing here is trying to do what's best for kids. And we have to keep the aspect in mind that we have to do that for the kids, but we also have staff and a community as well. And so, those are the 3 pillars that I come back to the most frequently in those situations.
Maybe something different between you and I already is I don't look over a situation, I work through it. Strength finders, I need to take it again. I fall over the map on that one. If you've ever done Enneagram, I'm a 9, so I'm a peacekeeper. I can't rest until the conflict is resolved. But at the same time, I really love a good heated debate, and I like learning because we're all individuals. We have different experiences. So you feel strong about this, and I feel about this. There's probably a common ground, but what formed your opinion? Because if I came this way and you're coming this way, at some point we're going to meet up. Not to get too deep political, I did this with my father-in-law years back. We had very, very different opinions on political candidates. And finally came down to be like, I'm old, I'm retired, I don't have kids in school. I'm young, I'm working, I have kids in school. And that's where we realized our viewpoints were so varying, but at the same time we had a common goal. And once you figure out that common goal, you can work up and through and then say, okay, great, I see where you're at, you see where I'm at, here's our point in the map we need to get to. Are we gonna walk the same path together hand in hand, or are we each gonna kind of divide and conquer and bring a little bit and give and take a little bit? But I don't look over a situation. Once again, I have to work through that situation, and each one's gonna be individualized and different, and it depends on the person, depends on the situation, and then also, I guess there's always an emergency clause in there, right? Being a parent and stuff. Sometimes you have to say, because I said so. I don't think you'll ever see that in a school board setting, but there are times that it is a because I said so moment, but I really don't do well with those. And my least favorite answer in the world is, well, this is the way we've always done it. To me, that's not a valid answer either. So As long as you're willing to explain, I'm willing to listen. I don't really get too heated at all too easily. I think 15, 20 years working with kids, 10 out with kids with autism just gave me a pretty thick skin, pretty even keel. And then once again, the guiding star for the good of the community and the children, that we need to be a good solid front and move forward.
I can go. Basically, the question is what motivated you to fill this vacancy? Angie, you stated that you weren't interested in an additional term, and then Patrick, having run or got a campaign and 2 campaigns now, just basically what's motivating you and what can you bring on the board now?
This was on me. My first run was motivated back in 2008, and growing up in a small town, I said, yeah, I want to make a difference. And at that point, I was working in the first autism center and seeing a lot of these children not get some opportunities in their schools going through. And I said, I want to someday when I live in the community that my kids go to school in, I will run for school board. We moved in the spring of 2018, which would have been a great year to run, but I just lost my father and we just moved. I had a 1-year-old. That was going to be great. 2020 was COVID, a whole mess we can all agree on. Also come 2022 is my first time to run. And from there, my motivation has stayed twofold. One is a lot of these students, and I think a lot of the students that you don't see day to day, or the ones that may fall in what I call the LGBTQ plus rainbow, are feeling pressures and they're not feeling welcome, they're not feeling safe. And in 2022, I got a murmur of that. And then when I announced my running, people said, well, hey, don't go near that school board. They're toxic. They're not worth it. We've lost community trust. I got asked if I played golf because so many decisions are made on the golf course. Then they're brought to the school board. This can't be right. Coming up to that first awesome forum, we had the room packed. There was the weird email that went out to, it was something like the Comments for Excellence. And it was this great publication, really well done. It only had 4 candidates and not a single person on that publication stood up and said, hey, this isn't right. There's an equal representation here. What about these other candidates? Why aren't they mentioned? I was no part of this. I did not sign off on this. Nobody stood for that. The board didn't follow through on what I feel is a security breach, where the email addresses come from, whose information was stolen. So going through to 2024, I was ready to not run again. I was kind of frustrated. The community came out and said, no. We need you. But why? Well, my son will not have this person as a teacher. I refuse. I'll pull them from their district. Great, bring it to the board. I don't feel comfortable. Why not? I'll lose my job because I'm an educator here. I have been forced with retaliation before. I won't do that. Another parent's coming to me. I don't like this thing that's happened. Take the school board, take the administrators. I don't feel comfortable. They're scared. They won't do anything. That's ridiculous to me in a small town. Digging through some Freedom of Information Act, some other things, there's some things I really don't like. So now I have this twofold thing where we are an awesome community that has zero community support for the school board. That irritates me and frustrates me and should frustrate all of us. And then there's this other community of children that I'm afraid are just going to get swept down a little more. They don't feel safe, they don't feel welcome, they don't feel included, they don't feel comfortable. That's not acceptable to me. So whether I end up on this vacancy or not, you're going to have to hear from me. So let's work together and get through it. Once again, let's not look over the situation, let's work through it. I'm afraid of losing enrollment, I'm afraid of losing funding, I'm afraid of losing great programs. Great educators have already left us because of their work environment. Great employees don't leave great jobs. And now we're losing an awesome superintendent and a great elementary principal after 2 short runs on both of them. Something isn't right here, and I just can't sit idly by and watch something collapse and say I didn't at least try to help. So between the guiding star for the students, the community, and trying to figure out how we get the community back on our side, I feel like I have to be in this room and be that person.
So, just circling back to the question, to make sure that the question is why am I willing to serve on the board at this time?
Yeah, basically what motivated you.
What motivated me, so. I have told people that I believe I'm a blue, and I just believe that to my core. I've served on the board for 10 years. The constituents of this community have elected me multiple times in order to represent them. on this board. The board has gone through some significant challenges with no fault to anyone around the table. There are some things that happened and now we have a vacancy. We also have 3 brand new board members. And I feel like I could be a bridge to help fill some of the gaps in knowledge and expertise over the next few months while we allow our new board members to come up to speed a little bit more, right? We all have been there, like first board meeting, first year, you feel like you're drinking from a fire hose, understanding finance and what it takes to have, Bob's world and what that means at the board level, what it means when we're talking about negotiations and what those perspectives mean. And so when I was approached to say, would you be willing to serve? I said, yes, I'll be willing to serve. But I did want to be upfront and say, I do not intend to run in the fall for the school board. I feel like it's an opportunity for a new candidate to come in, but in the interim, in the next few months, I can be that bridge to help bring some expertise and hopefully bring just knowledge and maybe some historical context when appropriate to the board, as well as be able to hit the ground running. I've been through all of the training. I know the administration team. I've worked with the superintendent. I've been through the superintendent hiring process. I've done principal hiring processes. I've done through negotiations. And I think all of those things could be a benefit to this board and the school district at this piece. In the past, the school board has been involved in those administrative hirings. I'm not assuming that it's going to be this time around, but in the past, the board has been, at least a portion of the board has been involved in those. And that's a really key piece. The leaders that we put in front of our students, in front of our staff, are instrumental in making this district successful.
I'm totally going to echo Angie on there. The biggest thing for me is trust via transparency and communication. And building that trust will come quickly with hiring. I agree, the next best super, because Mr. Inns was amazing. I spent time with him when we did the strategic planning before the election, and then homecoming. Every time I turned around that Friday, he was in the hot wings eating contest. He was high-fiving kids in the parade. He was amazing. I want somebody of that personality. The students could walk around the building. He was great. I could hear from the staff. He's a really nice guy. Like, he took a chance to get to know you. So I definitely think the biggest thing right now is trust via transparency. And with that transparency and that trust comes with us, it's a tough financial decision. Like you just said, we can't spend more than we have. It's a budget. We have $100. We cannot spend $105. It just doesn't work. But I don't usually use big fluffy words. I'm just pretty straight, open, and transparent. Here's what we have. Here's what we're working with. Please trust us again. Back to it's just frustrating me in the communities that the school board, they don't do it. They're not helping us. And really, we're shaping so much of this community. And we are a shining star when people come to our community, love our facilities. They talk about how great we are. Back to the middle school robotics state meeting where I spent 2 days. One of the judges came over. I want to let you know your teams are so kind and they're just amazing. They went through their registration and the pre-checks and they were just polite. Cool. I'm not even a coach. I'm just a chaperone dad taking pictures, but yeah, that pumped me up. And I would like from sports team to what I call mathlete teams to get that kind of compliment, which has to go out of their way to say you guys are a shining example. That's what my goal to get back to, and that only comes back to just people having trust that the decisions being made in these rooms are for the betterment of the entire community. Getting elementary principal, because that's really where you shape those foundational things. And I have a kid in elementary school, so I really want a good principal. She's got 2 more years there, and it's going to keep coming back to that trust and transparency. That's going to be our 2 biggest things I think will get us back on top of the shining star.
Any questions left in here? What leadership experience do you have, and how do you believe this will help the board?
It was up to me. So moving up a little bit more recent, I can go back to back in Chapel. We call it Valley on Version Project Kids. I spent 10 years as an assistant coordinator there. I spent 6.5 years with children with autism. Picked up lead roles there. I was on a technology-based communications coordinator for workforce development before 2010's big financial layoff because we were a nonprofit. And moving up into Charter business, I created a team that didn't exist and then filled out the team and ran that. That was when we would research the technical issue, work with whoever it was in the company to find out how it broke, how to fix it, how to stop it from fixing it, do the tough math, and then go to pick your 3-letter acronym of who's on the ladder when we owed an NFL team about $58,000 one day. Hey boss, we need to write a check for $58K. Here's how it happened. Here's why it happened. Here's how it can't happen again. And here's why this is justified. My team got really, really good. And we would have stayed there had the entire charter business, inspector business, not moved out of Rochester. Moved over to Mayo Clinic because one of my coworkers was there. And she said it was a great job and it was awesome fit. And then left to do a dream job brewing beer. And that was, if you want some leadership skills, it's, you have not even 800 square feet, but you have 100 gallons going, and you have all these cans that need to go and get delivered, everything needs to be labeled, and everything needs to be within government spec, and you need to tell everybody in that room what's going on and have complete trust in what they're doing and complete and clear direction. We never failed an inspection. We never got dinged for a tax issue. Everything was up to snuff. We just, from what I understand, ran out of money and had to close. So everywhere I've ever been, I've always ended up being a key holder or a code holder or a leader or whatever title it takes to be. I've never not been there. I've been in my new job 90 days and I'm already picking up routing skills that only one other person in the corporation knows. Like, hey, people like you, they respond to you, we're gonna give you this so you can do this new thing now. I've always just kind of landed there and I feel like that makes me a really good quality person for something like this as well. So I try to be approachable, I try to be transparent, and I try to lead by example. I will never ask you to do something I won't do. I will ask you to do something I can't do if I don't have the knowledge base.
Would you like me to repeat the question?
Please.
What leadership experience do you have, and how do you believe this will help the board?
So we talked a little bit about my school board experience, but just to touch on to ensure that everyone's aware. So I served on the board for 10 years. I have served in every leadership capacity on the board: chair, clerk, treasurer. I think if I remembered back, it was 8 of 10 years that I served on the board that my peers around the table elected me to one of those officer roles. So from a perspective of how could I impact the board, I have the knowledge that the board needs in the short term. I understand the complexities behind what it was. Kate and I talked at the last board meeting about the role of clerk. She said, I was surprised at how much more there is that goes into clerk than you don't really see. You think it's just the thank you notes, and it's not really that, right? It's reading contracts and understanding and knowing that what you're signing off on is what's the board's voted on and what's best in line for the district. So from those experiences, I think that is how I can make an immediate impact. Just some other spaces that you might not realize that I've been involved in the community. So I got involved in the early childhood advisory committee when my family and I moved to the district, probably about 18, 19 years ago now. And that was my first inroads into that. When the school district was going through the say yes to have the beautiful facilities that we have now, many years ago, I was asked if I would take on the role of chair for that Say Yes campaign because I was not on the school board and they were looking for a non-school board member to chair that committee. And so I think that was my next step into saying yes to things and getting involved. Shortly thereafter, I then ended up getting involved in the school board, and I think my passion just continued to evolve and continue to show the leadership roles. 10 years ago, my friend Jennifer Hodgman and I started Food for Friends, which is a backpack program for students in backpacks and enrolled that are at risk for food insecurity. And so that program's been going for 10 years, and it's just always something that's close to my heart. So it gives you just a little glimpse of the different ways I've been involved in the community, where I volunteered my time, and the ways I continue to serve and lead.
I can go with my second question. I'm just going to echo, Erin, I think you said it very well. I appreciate your experience on the board, but in an effort to build community trust, I feel strongly that we need to listen to the community voice of the most recent election, where if the resigned school board member hadn't run, Pat Walsh would be the elected candidate. I just feel like that this ensures community representation, and because you weren't on the ballot, there's not a comparison there. Although I do value your expertise and your experience that you bring. You're very well spoken and answer questions very eloquently.
All right. Can I go now? So in transparency, like Mr. Aaron said, I got about 15 to 20 plus emails today from our community. And our community has said that they don't want a certain candidate. Has nothing to do with more than just political beliefs. And so in transparency, I'm going to go with what the community asked for us to do. And the community asked for us to vote with somebody that's been there and tried and true and trust. So that's where my vote is going. And I wanted to make that sure because we've been sitting here talking about democracy wasn't done at last meeting when it was. I mean, unless we're going to say that the election was wrong. It was a vote. He wasn't elected for 2 times in a row. So I don't like us the way that we're playing that. And I think we need to own up to that. The vote was done. It was cast. It was finalized. We got 15 to 20 plus emails today, at least, I saw counting, asking us to bring a former board member back. So let's not tip-a-toe around republic or democracy. It was filled. Thank you.
I'm going to respond to that. I do appreciate the community reaching out, but we're talking about 20 emails versus an election that had 2,682 votes.
How many did you get for Pat?
That's what
How
I'm.
many emails did you get for Pat? How many emails did you get for Pat? That's all I wanted. Answer that simple question.
How do you disregard the support that was shown in the previous election?
I'm just asking you a simple question. How many emails did you get from Pat?
I did not get any emails from Pat. I did reach out to, I'm not from here. I don't know a lot of people, but I did reach out and ask people to get their feedback, a handful of them. And at least out of the 4 people I asked, they all said they would support Pat. And these are random people. They're not great friends of mine. They're people that taught my children some things. There's people I just know from my wife went to school with him. That's pretty much how all I know him. And then this other person, I can't remember off the top of my head. But I tried to make it as random as possible of a assortment. And they all gave me essentially the same feedback. They would like to move forward, and they think, and then the biased decision would be go on through next on the election. And I do agree. I got a lot of emails today, 15 emails, but I did reach out to random people too, and they gave me opposite feedback. So, like I said, my just personal opinion, I'm just trying to be as transparent as possible. I feel like it's unbiased.
But you didn't tell the whole point. You just left part of it out, right? You didn't tell the whole story. You just left that one point out.
So, what part?
Your transparency, you didn't tell the other part of it. That's what I'm trying to say. We got emails and nobody brought that up, what the community wanted. And that's what I'm bringing up. I'm not arguing. I'm just saying, if you're going to be totally transparent, let's lay it out on it.
No, that's absolutely fine. I mean, I can count the emails. There were at least 15 emails for him. But I just said, and that's why I didn't have any questions, because I know she's an excellent candidate, absolute excellent candidate. I'm just going off of my own personal belief. I just can't look back and ignore 2,682 people who live in this community. We didn't have to vote for him. Those 2,682 votes could have gone between any of the other 4 candidates, and he could have got 0 votes or 5 votes. And I would make the argument if he had received 10 votes this time, then you know what, we should look for other candidates. But 2,682 is a lot of people to just ignore in our community and say your input is not valued when we move forward. And I know everybody can make their own decision here. That's the decision I make. I wasn't trying to hide anything. I'll agree. I got 15 emails, and they all said the same thing. They don't want Pat Walsh.
Everybody gets trophy.
I just finished suggesting, why don't we finish up with the questions, and then we'll have time for discussion. So we don't want to waste it. Is there anybody else? I don't have any more questions. All right, well, I thank both candidates for putting up with this. Nerve-wracking, I can imagine.
If it helps, I just got a message going, oh, I didn't know we can email, because people weren't paying attention to last week's meeting, so. That, I know that was brought up at last week's meeting, is how we're gonna get public input, so if this ever happens in the future, that might be a nice building point to work on that.
Okay, so I guess we'll open it up to.
Since Pat just had a closing statement, I'd like to just make one statement as well. I think if you go back to the number of votes that I received in the elections, this community has elected me multiple times to serve on this school board. And so I don't also want that to be lost in going back, if we're looking at, has the community voted for this individual to serve on the board? And yes, I have successfully been voted multiple times to serve on the board. I don't know what the number is here as far as the actual number of votes. But maybe we could look that up, but that's really of importance.
So I looked up the last special election, I think 89 votes is, you were next tied or closest to was Mr. Seuss, right? Mr. Seuss, yeah. So I mean, it was a very close election on that one too. But I'm sorry, I wasn't trying to, I'm just trying to be as transparent as possible. I just think it's important to acknowledge that we just had an election, a large chunk of electorate still voted or chose him. And, it's coming up in November. Whoever wants to run again can run again. And like I stated, I made it very clear, if people are upset with the decision that comes out tonight, there's a process for them to petition that.
Thank you, guys. I guess I'll open it up to discussion. Anybody, a couple of shared some opinions.
So I would like to continue responding, just, I understand the support received via email. I also spoke to community members who expressed support for Pat. However, I don't think that as a school board member, my opinion outweighs the opinion of our constituents who participated in the latest election, where we have evidence of support enough so that if the resigned board member had not run, Pat would currently be on our board through the democratic process.
But wouldn't he be on the board by default? Because there would be no other candidates open.
Yeah, showing that he has the support, he would be democratically elected. There is representation through Pat.
But as far as the electorate being supported, when they voted for us, that we are their voice now. We're for an appointment. This isn't an election. This is an appointment. And this is the task that we were given by the voters when you were elected. But also, I know we've had discussion about vote totals and stuff. I'm looking back at 2022. Mr. Waltz received less than half the lowest vote. So, I mean, I'm not sure what changed between then and now, but it was very obvious that the voters felt that he was the least desired in 2022. Then I did put a comment. I know, Aaron, you brought this up in my mind about you when we were going through the process of voting in board chair. I know how much you emphasize how your reasoning for voting for me is because I had the most experience. And I feel that we aren't trying to be, I think we need to have priorities. Who is it more fair for? Is it more fair for Mr. Walsh, as mayor for the community, or what I believe is what's best for the district and our children? And there's zero question in my mind that Angie, her heart is in this 1,000%. I've worked with her for the last 6 years, and probably one of the most well thought, considerate, data-driven person that I've worked with. So.
And I don't want to cop on this. I think I made it clear at the beginning, I think we knew where this was gonna go, and I think I found a good resolution for us to move forward. I would 100% agree, you can go look, and he didn't get a lot of votes in 2022. And like I said, if we had looked back at this election and he had got 100 votes, I would say, he's not really a legitimate person. But he got very similar to everybody else who won. There's still 2,682 people in this community who had a choice out of 5 people. They didn't have to vote for him at all. He could have got 0 votes, and all those 2,682 people could have got split up between the 4 of us who were elected, but they didn't. So in my gut, this isn't an easy decision. This is something I flip-flop back and forth because I know her experience. I know how well she does. I know she serves. I know she bleeds common blue. In my gut, my personal feeling, I just have a hard time sitting here at the end of the day saying there's 2,682 people that I don't respect that you wanted them. And that's just my thoughts and opinions, and I realize other people disagree, but that's just my value there.
And I know there's been some opinions on the democratic process, but I'm trying to think through all the between senators, federal, state, in the Constitution, both Minnesota and the United States Constitution. It's not the person that was previously on the last ballot that didn't get elected. It's either the governor or it's brought to a special election to fill that position. So I just can't think of an example where you would take the person that was on the ballot that lost to have that position. So unless anybody can come up with something, I guess I thought I researched pretty well.
I think it's different for partisan versus non-partisan elected representation. But like you said, if Amy hadn't run, that would be by default on the board. I just don't think we have the authority or should have the authority to overrule 2,682 individuals.
I would go back, I think it would be a totally different conversation if there's 4 people that ran, 4 people won, and then somebody resigned. And then I think, if we needed to appoint somebody and somebody appointed 2 of these individuals, I think Angie would do the clear picture. And again, I think she would do great. I just have a hard time. It was so recent. A lot of people did speak in the community for him. I just have a hard time ignoring that many people. And that's my only opinion.
I agree with that.
I would agree with that as well, and I do want to chime in. I think that Angie brings so much knowledge to this, and that can't be disregarded. I just feel like we did get those emails. Before I even got those emails, I started reaching out to people in our community last week saying, what are your thoughts on this? Like, I just want to hear what people have to say. A lot of people really are thankful for everything that you did, Angie. There are also a lot of people that want to move forward and want to build trust in this board. And I think that having somebody who the voters did vote for, and I know that he didn't win, but I also know that if you look at the percentages of all of us who did win, they're not very much higher than his vote. It was a pretty close election, and I do feel like our community did speak in voting for him. I wish that we weren't in this situation. I wish that it could go directly to a special election so that we could directly hear from all of the community about this. But that's not our situation, so that's where I see it.
I didn't make a decision.
Carlin dropped the yellow piece here. We're gonna go to ballot vote. So it's right at the top, right here, right here.
Yes, I need to say who voted for me.
Which candidate you support?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Eric Mesa votes for Angie Richards. Aaron Stockard votes for Pat Walsh. Elizabeth Armstrong votes for Pat Walsh. Patrick Madeira votes for Angie Richards. Kate Ryan votes for Pat Walsh. Mark Torkelson votes for Angie Richards.
Okay, I guess we would have time. And I think we decided on the vote unanimously that we would go with the opinion of the chair. My opinion has changed. I believe Angie Richards is going to be the most valuable candidate for this time in the districts. It was out of the district, so I guess so that's my opinion. So we can go ahead and take another vote. Yes.
Kate Ryan votes for Angie Richards. Eric Mason votes for Angie Richards. Mark Torkelson votes for Angie Richards. Patrick Madeira votes for Angie Richards. Elizabeth Armstrong votes for Angie Richards. Aaron Stockard votes for Angie Richards.
Thank you, everyone. Moving on to 5.1, approval of the school board member vacancy appointment. And I think you all have a link to that.
Can I suggest we read it? As a member of that, they read each resolution, and I find it very helpful as we go through things.
I will introduce the resolution. Member Angie Richards, or I'm sorry, Mark Torkelson, resolution, and move for its note. Is there a second?
A second.
If you'd like to read it.
Sure. Resolution filling school board member vacancy by appointment. Whereas a vacancy exists in the office of the school board member with a term expiring the first Monday in January 2029, and whereas the vacancy occurred more than 90 days prior to the first Tuesday after the first Monday in November in the year the vacancy occurred in the first and, oh my gosh, in the first or second year of the vacant term. Therefore, be it resolved by the School Board of Casson-Manorville Independent School District number 204, State of Minnesota as follows. Pursuant to Minnesota Statute Section 123B.09, Subdivision 5B, Angie Richards is hereby appointed to fill the vacancy and to serve until a successor is elected and qualified. The appointment shall be effective 30 days after the adoption of this resolution unless a valid petition to reject the appointee is filed with the school district clerk pursuant to Minnesota Statute Section 123B.09, Subdivision 5B, CP, within that 30-day time period. The vote on adoption of the resolution was as follows. Ayes 6, nay 0, absent 0. Whereupon said resolution was declared duly adopted on this third day of March 2025.
Thank you. Doing any further discussion? All those in favor of approval of the resolution, say aye. Aye. All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Moving on to strategic planning update, classroom, boardroom process, update video. Did we still want to do that?
It is there for you to watch on your own time unless you want to watch it now.
Can we watch it right now, actually? Not to keep everyone longer, but I tried to get into it before, wanted me to download it.
Hello, Council Manderville School Board, Superintendents, Administration, and Community. I'm Ray Queener, and I am from TeamWorks International, and we are assisting the district in its strategic planning process. And I'm recording this video to give you a brief update and overview of where we are in our process, as well as talk about some of the key outcomes that we have done, and also provide some next steps, so you know what is coming next. I'll do just a quick overview again of our classroom to boardroom process. We'll talk about the activities that we have participated in. We've got the education leadership system that we did with the school board administration, desired daily experiences, our theory of action, and summary of our building and department strengths and needs. And again, as I mentioned, talk about next steps. If you recall, we talked about the classroom to boardroom process. There are really 4 parts of this work. So we spend time assessing our current reality, describing the vision, mapping out the plan, and then develop an implementation plan to move forward. Specifically, on this graph, you can see the dates and times of our sessions. We began back in August of 24 with the administrative team, who completed a story wall, which is a look back at Castle Manderville schools and what's happened to date. We then moved to the environmental scan in August, and we talked about all those things that are kind of present day. So what are the things that are well established, things that might be ebbing, things that are on the edge, cutting edge to education, or possibly new to CASN, and then emerging in terms of what things are you currently working on. We then shifted to working on some desired daily experiences and describing our vision and mapping out that draft theory of action. We went back to finish up our current reality just a week ago when we did our building and department strengths and needs. And we will be working on the vision card in March, back into the describing our vision. That's how we measure the progress of our strategic plan. And then last week, we completed an exercise where we developed the 3-year draft operational plan. Again, that's the tool of management that will help guide that work for the next 3 years. We'll be coming back and refining that in a week or so. And then we'll be moving into the boardroom portion of our process, where we'll be working with the school board to revisit the current district mission, vision, core values, and the strategic directions that are coming from the operational plan. We'll do some other activities with the board. We'll take a look at the board's 3-year board agenda or 3-year governance plan. So that's the work of the board that will ensure that we pave the way for this plan to be moving forward. And finally, in the last phase, strategic planning and school board superintendent, we'll be doing our school and department improvement plans in June of 2025. As you recall, on October 9th, 2024, we talked about the education leadership system, and we talked about things about what it looks like to have excellence in governance, excellence in management, and excellence in consultation. And probably more importantly, how do you navigate between those 3 authorities? The board and administrators also completed an exercise about what is, what's the current reality from their perspective, and got some feedback and input on what ought to be. In November, we conducted some focus groups of students, families, and staff that allowed us to capture their desired daily experiences. We culminated that with a survey that took place at the end of January, early February. And what we're looking for is for the stakeholders to provide us with keywords and phrases that would describe the experience that they desire when they engage with school. We asked them to be very descriptive and really paint the picture of what that would look like. What does it sound like? What does it feel like? What does it look like? And we focused on trying to have them provide us these experience statements in terms of solutions versus focusing only on the problems. For the students, we did those focus groups on November 6th and 13th. We had 2 middle school groups and 1 high school group representing our grades 5 through 12. We had a varied levels of achievement, student involvement in activities, race, ethnicity, and gender. So we had a nice balance of students from all aspects of the middle and senior high school. We had about 18 middle school students and 30 senior high school students who participated. For staff, we had 2 groups that participated on November 6th and 13th as well. They represented a variety of grades and positions across the entire school district. 8 staff from elementary and community ed, 19 secondary staff, and district-wide staff that participated. And finally, for the families, 2 groups were facilitated on, again, November 6th and 13th. We had about 30 parents that represented elementary, middle school, and high school. So the team took this data from these focus groups and they developed draft statements. After the draft statements were developed, we then did a survey for all the stakeholders. So that was sent out to all 5 through 12 students, all families, and all staff to give us feedback on those draft statements. We then took that feedback on those statements and we developed a final draft of the desired daily experiences for students, families, and staff. So what you see on the screen is the final draft that the planning team worked on. They're categorized into 4 categories: safety and belonging, classroom environment and instruction, student choice and engagement, and social connections and school experience. You'll see some similarities in categories across all 3 groups. You'll notice these statements are written in first-person language, so they all typically will start or have a I or my focus in the statements. They are written as if they are accomplished, even though we know in these categories you will still have work to do to deliver on these desired daily experiences, which then informs the plan of what the district will do to meet these desired daily experiences. So we have 10 overall statements for students. And we have 12 statements from our families. Again, notice the similarities in the categories of these statements. Now, parents wore 2 hats. So the parent wears both the parent hat, so what they want to experience when they engage with school, but also you'll see language about their desired experience for their children. And so they had to represent kind of both of those. And so you have those 12 statements from your families. For staff, again, some similarities in categories: professional support and workplace environment, resources and support for student success, community and family engagement, and facilities and learning environment. And so there's 10 draft statements from the staff. The planning team will review these one more time before they become a final draft. And we'll be bringing that to the board for your review in conjunction with the other products that we have completed, so that you can have all this information to look at your mission, your vision, your core values, and the strategic directions as we move forward. Next, we completed a theory of action. And the theory of action is really about the behaviors of the adults in the system. What are those beliefs? What are those things that we have to provide? What do we have to create? What do we have to do as the adults to help us achieve our desired daily experiences? And it's short of initiatives, so it's more of a cultural belief, cultural actions that need to be taking place from the adults in the system to be able to deliver on those desired daily experiences. There are two theory of actions. We have a classroom theory of action, which you can see on the screen. So you'll notice that each of these start with either a if or a when we. And again, this is coming back for final revision with the planning team. And they will ultimately recommend whether we use if statements or when we statements. And you can see the statements provided here that are currently draft. And it's what the adults have to believe, what they have to do. All of these statements start with a verb: to ensure, to meet, to believe, utilize, instruct, etc. Next, we completed a district-wide theory of action. The structure is the same, but this theory of action applies to all adults in the system. Whereas the classroom focuses, as you would suspect from the title, on specifically just the classroom. Once the board has revised the mission statement, the then statement will become the mission statement. So if we, or when we, do these things, both in the classroom and district-wide, it will help us live up to the mission statement of the school district. On February 18th, we did the district department and building strengths and needs. We did do a survey that allowed all the staff to engage in what, from their perspective, what their strengths and needs are, and we asked a variety of questions. Not only just what are the strengths of the school, what are the needs of the school, but also some specific things around PLCs, student engagement, achievement within the school. And the team also, or the survey also asked for providing us some level of quality and description of those core processes that happen at the schools and at the district level. And so each school and each department completed that. And what we encapsulated in this report is overall district strengths. So this is a collection of the district strengths from all the schools, all the departments. And as you read through these, you'll notice that there's a lot of strengths at Castle Mantorville schools. And so this was not surprising to me and the team, because there's tremendously wonderful things happening each and every day in the school district. I won't read through these. You can have a chance to take a look at this video and also to review these separately. District-wide, we also collected the needs, and you can see the categories of some needs that rose to the top. But we have all the detail of each specific thing. And the planning team then dissected this even further to map out what are some ideas that they might have during the session that would allow us to achieve some of these needs. And they prioritized those draft ideas. That information then was provided back to the planning team. The planning team was part of the larger committee. But they also then were able to say, based on the feedback we received from our staff and from the larger group that did the strengths and needs session, what are some of those top priorities that they feel are necessary as part of the work of the district in the future? In terms of next steps, so we did, like I mentioned last week, we had our draft of our 3-year operational plan. We come back in March, and that planning team will refine the district 3-year operational plan, primarily looking at when are we going to be able to accomplish these desired initiatives and in what year. So we're mapping things out over 3 years based on some priorities. The very first thing we want to do is finish what has been started in the school district. So before we entertain adding new things to the district, we want to finish what's been started and make sure that we have enough capacity to be able to move things forward. On March 18th, we will take a look at that vision card. And again, that's the tool that we use to measure the progress of the district that is influenced by your strategic plan. April 7th is when I'll be with the board and administrators to take a look at that strategic roadmap. And we will look at the mission, the vision, the core values, and strategic directions to see if there's any refinement needed or further development needed. After we do that session on April 7th, we will then reach back out to the community, to all the stakeholders to get their feedback. They'll see the final draft of the desired daily experiences. They'll see the proposed mission, vision, core values, and strategic directions, just to make sure we're in alignment with what they had told us and the direction the board sets for the school district. The board then will officially act on the strategic roadmap on May 5th. Upon that action, then you officially have your strategic plan. And we still have a few more activities that we do post-approval of the strategic roadmap. As I mentioned, we'll work with the board to develop a 3-year board governance plan that will map out the specific work of the board to ensure that we're able to implement the plan over those 3 years. And then the next session with the school board is we'll take a look at your structures, your practices, your governance sessions, to just make sure that we have everything working as a system and as a structure to allow the board to be able to, again, pave the way for this plan to be implemented. We come back on June 10th and we have a full session there where we will be mapping out the implementation plan. We call that school and department improvement plans. So they'll be matriculating that work, not just from a district level, but also what does it specifically mean for schools? What does it specifically mean for departments? And then later in the summer, we'll meet with the leadership team and we'll be providing what we call an owner's manual. But how does the team then lead this forward to make sure that these implementation plans are executed and that we are moving things forward in a positive direction? I know this isn't a static video, you don't have a chance to ask questions, but if anyone has questions, feel free to reach out. My contact information is on the screen, and happy to answer any questions, or if you want to filter them through Superintendent Ince, I can definitely get answers and information to him. Again, wanted to give you just a brief overview of kind of where we're at and what's left to do in the process. I hope you found that informational and beneficial. And again, if you have any questions or comments, please don't hesitate to either reach out to me directly or through Superintendent Ince as we move forward. Thank you for taking time to watch this video, and I wish you the very best as we continue through our process, and I look forward to helping facilitate that in the months to come. Thank you.
On 6.2, under the commissional items, regular school board at 5:30 p.m. on Monday, March 17th, in the high school committee forum room. And 6.3, special school board meeting 5:30 Monday, April 7th, in the high school forum room. We're going to adjourn. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So
Have a second.
Second.
Aaron. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign.